we are excited to see so many of you, so many people joining these sessions of Open Carousell. It's great to see so many of you, let's say, took the time to join today. So yeah, let's start. Let's go straight to the next slide. So I'm sure you will hear a lot of interesting stories later on today. So please remember to ask questions if you have any. We have some time dedicated to the Q&A towards the end, and also share some feedback with us so we can improve. I wanna give a quick overview of what is Open Carousell first, for those of you that are joining for the first time. So Open Carousell, it's a recurring event. We've done a few rounds of it, and usually what happens is that we hear directly from people working at Carousell how are the things they are working on, which challenges they faced, some of their story and some of their learnings, of course. So here is just a sample of some of the topics we've shared in the past. We are slowly making them available online, so including this one today. So if you don't want to miss the next one, please just reach out to us, follow us on LinkedIn, or leave your contacts in the feedback form or in the contact form. Yeah, next slide. So today we're gonna have 3 speakers, including myself. So I'll go to the agenda briefly, but before of it, I would like to introduce the speakers of today. So the first one, I think doesn't need too much of a presentation, is Lucas, one of our co-founder. Together with Marcus and Sure, he envisioned in first place, and then went over and built Carousell from the beginning. Victor is our engineering director. Is based in Singapore, and is also the very first engineer that believed in Carousell and joined Carousell. About myself, I'm Damiano. I'm also director of engineering, and I'm the site lead here in Taiwan. I'm based in Taiwan. I look after the development center here, and yeah, I'll talk about it in a bit. So let's go to the agenda in the next slide. So I'm taking care of the opening. Then Lucas will share a bit about how Carousell was born, and actually the journey through the different iteration of the classified marketplace, but actually where is that leading? And afterwards, it will be my turn. I'll just explain a bit how we work in the engineering team, how we are structured, and what are some of the values we believe in. Finally, Victor will share about the journey, the scaling journey of the engineering team from 3 engineers up to 100, and all the learnings that has been there has been along the way. And then we will have also Jyoti sharing about our hot jobs, and because we hope many of you will be able to join us along our journey, and we will leave some time towards the end for the Q&A. So yeah, please feel free to get more questions coming. I see you already sent some questions through the form, so hope some of them will be answered through the presentation, but if not, please just write down. Okay, so yeah, without much further ado, I'll leave it to Lucas. Thanks.
Thanks, Dami. Hi, everyone. Good to have everyone join us today at our event. So yeah, I'm going to be sharing. I'm Lucas. So I'm going to be sharing about Carousell, as well as what we are thinking about building the next generation of C2C platforms to inspire everyone to buy and sell. So let's get started. So in the next slide, so Carousell, we started off, we designed Carousell for the mobile generation. So basically Carousell makes it really simple for anyone to buy and sell, just snap, list and sell. And there's private chat function, so that people can chat directly between the buyers and sellers to complete the deal. We also built in AI assisted product and features into the selling as well as buying experience. And most importantly, Carousell is all about a marketplace of connecting buyers and sellers. So it's very important for us to present personalized content to help our buyers and sellers. So I'm going to touch a little bit about how we got started. So Carousell started at 2012, but 1 year before, at 2011, co-founders, we three of us, we spent a year in Silicon Valley. So this is part of a school program that sends students from Singapore to Silicon Valley to intern at tech startups for 1 year, as well as to study part-time courses at Stanford. So it's during that time where, that's where the mobile kind of explosion started, right? If you remember back in around the time of 2011, that's where a lot of the mobile apps started coming up, right? WhatsApp, Instagram, and so on, right? So over at Silicon Valley, we were inspired by the tech as well as the tech founders there, right? Basically, we see how people are able to come together, have an idea and passion to use technology to solve problems and really scale it to touch the lives of many people. So we've seen how at the time, I think WhatsApp was just 35 employees, right? I mean, Instagram is probably even lesser than that, and really look how far they have come in less than 10 years, right? So that's the power of technology, right? So we took that learning and inspiration, and when we came back, we decided to join a competition called Startup Weekend. Basically it's a hackathon for 2 to 3 days where we build on new ideas. It is at that point where we built the first prototype of Carousell. It was called Snapsell at the time, and we pitched it to the judges, and we actually won the competition, right? So that's actually where we first met Victor as well. So Victor was also part of the Startup Weekend team, and later on Victor joined us as our first employee as well. So that's kind of how Carousell got started. If we go to the next slide, you see that how in Silicon Valley we learned how to build apps, and then when we came back we joined the hackathon competition and we won. After we won the competition, we got inspired. We decided to spend the next 3 months to build up the full iOS app, and then we launched it in 2012, right? So we decided to, hey, let's go full time on this and really build out this idea. And Carousell really started from a simple problem that we're trying to solve for ourselves, right? Basically, before that, we were buying and selling at the time at forums, right? Where it is so troublesome to buy and sell. You have to use your camera to take a photo of the item and upload it, and there's no quick way for you to chat with the sellers and buyers. You have to reply on the forums and so on. So we decided to, hey, use mobile to solve the entire problem and make it really simple to buy and sell. So it all started with this problem. So if we go to the next slide. So today, after 8+ years, we're one of the largest and fastest growing classifieds in the world. So currently we are in all the markets here. So Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, Hong Kong, as well as Myanmar. So last year, we did 2 acquisitions and merger. So one is we acquired OLX Philippines. So that allows us to have the market leading position in Philippines, as well as we did the merger with the 701 Search Group. That allows us to enter into Malaysia, Vietnam, as well as Myanmar. So yeah, if we go to the next slide. So currently we're in 8 markets, so over 250 million user listings listed across Carousell. So over the years, we are also fortunate to be supported and partner with some of the best investors out there, right? So investors like Sequoia, which have backed companies like WhatsApp and Google and so on. Also Rakuten Ventures, DBS, Naspers, Telenor, and most recently as well, Naver join our board as our investor. Yep. So we always say that at Carousell we're less than 1% done, right? So so going forward, how can we continue to inspire a billion people to start selling? How can we continue to solve problems for people, right? So in order to do that, if we go to the next slide, we have to seek inspiration from the evolution of classifieds. So let's look at how classifieds have evolved over the years, right? So if you look at classifieds 1.0, this is really in the older days where newspaper, at the back of the newspaper, you have printed ads. These are basically ads that you can see by people posted, right? You can buy a car, buy a house. Everything was on paper form. So it really takes very long to list an item, right? To list an ad, you have to wait until the newspaper get published the next day. So it's like 30 hours to list an item. So that was classifieds 1.0. So moving a little bit forward to classifieds 2.0, this was the desktop era when internet came about, right? So desktop-based, search optimized, 30 minutes to list. So these are sites like Craigslist, the forums. It still takes a long time to list an item, 30 minutes. And then when we started in 2012, we pioneered the classifieds 3.0. That's where mobile came about, right? Now we kind of take things for granted, but at the time, mobile was game-changing, right? It allows for chat, it allows for location-based, it allows you to snap a photo, snap a video instantly and list it up. So it's snap, list, sell, 30 seconds to list. So we're one of the few pioneers of classifieds 3.0 in the world, together with other players like OfferUp and Wallapop. So going forward, we want to continue to innovate, right? Less than 1% done. How do we go towards classifieds 4.0? So we have to look at the problems that we're trying to solve, right? So these are the problems that we always hear from our users. You know, they don't know how to price the item. How can they list faster? They don't know, or they don't have anything to sell. How to spend less time replying, and is lack of trust, right? So all these things are the problem that we want to take together and say, hey, how can we solve all these problems to, create the next version of Classifieds 4.0? So what is Classifieds 4.0, right? It's really to reimagine classifieds for an AI-first world. And there's key 3 themes to this that we're going to talk about. The first one is smart, second one is convenience, and the third one is community. So let's go towards smart as well. First, so smart is really how can we simplify the selling process from 30 seconds to 3 seconds using AI algorithms and the data that we've collected over the 8 years, right? So here are some of the examples that we have built in. So as you can see, the first one is listing suggestions. So the most fundamental thing that users can do is to list an item. The first thing that they'll do is list an item. So we want to make this process down to 3 seconds. So this means how can we use the data that we have to suggest a title for you, to suggest a category for you, even suggest prices for you, right? So the ideal kind of user experience is that you can take a photo of an item. Our machine learning algorithm, computer vision, will recognize what category this should be in, give you a suggested titles, as well as give you a suggested pricing. So as you can see, this solves for how do I list my item faster? How do I select a correct price for my item? So that's the first thing that we've done to simplify the process. So the next thing that we also worked on is on the buying side of things, right? So a lot of times when you see an item out there, you may not be able to describe it, but what if you can just take a photo of the item, and then our image search algorithm will suggest you for the similar listings out there. So the next one is also how do we continuously improve our personalized experience, our recommendation, so that the more you use the app, the more we can profile you, what kind of items, what kind of profile you are, and then every time you open the app, you can see things that are personalized to you. So this can shorten the time for you to find your item, as well as to be able to optimize how we show sellers' items to the buyer. So overall, we can shorten the time for us to help buyers and sellers to transact. So other than that, when you view a listing, we also show you other similar listings so that you can continue to buy related items as well. Chat as well is another experience that we worked on to optimize. So a lot of time, just now we see, right, the problem is I find it too troublesome to reply. So what if when you type, we can give you suggestions of what you can reply. So this is using some of the machine learning algorithm to understand text that we use to give you the suggestions. So we will go a step further in the next slide to help in question and answering as well. So a lot of times sellers, they already put the information about the product on their listing details, but buyers may ask the same question. So we can detect that and pull out the relevant context so that sellers can just one tap to reply the buyer. So these are some of the things that we're working on. There are a lot more things that we are working on, the engineering team is working on to improve the experience. If you think about our core of Carousell, how we monetize is also through ads, right? How do we actually show relevant ads to the buyer so that we can improve conversion? Those are using machine learning as well. So that's about smart. Next, we'll talk about convenience. So just now, if we look at the next slide, so convenience is basically how do we create that kind of seamless checkout experience, seamless delivery experience, and trusted experience for our buyers, right? So one of the barriers of users adopting secondhand is that it may not be safe, right? I may not know if I'm buying authentic items or if the item is in good quality condition, or if I'm buying a secondhand item, I may want to, kind of chat with the sellers to make sure that I can be sure that the item is authentic, and I have to arrange my own shipping and so on. So it's a lot of trouble in between, right, to make secondhand. So we want to make secondhand into the same experience and as just a one checkout experience that we see in e-commerce. So with this, we are integrating in payments and shipping into the experience. We also want to unlock more transactional features by introducing installment plans, extended warranty, financing of high value purchases, as well as cross-border transactions. So you can imagine that in the future where even you're buying a second-hand item, you know that the quality are assured. You can do a one-click checkout and the item will get shipped to you. And if you find that anything is wrong, you can get an extended warranty. So, and you can also afford the item by doing installment plans, right? So a lot of things that are available to first-hand e-commerce, we want to bring it to second-hand e-commerce as well. And of course, opening up cross-border transactions as well. How can Singaporeans users buy something from Taiwan and so on? So that's all about convenience. And for the last one will be about community. So we talk about smart, we talk about convenience. Also a very, very important part of Carousell is actually the community of users that make up Carousell, right? So it's all about the people and the stories of Carousellers. So we want to add in social features into the experience. So we go to the next slide. Yeah, so how do we connect communities? So we want to allow users to be able to follow each other. We want to create a groups experience where people of similar interests can come together to interact. So it's not just transactional buy and sell, right? But people actually make friends, people actually share about things that they they are passionate about with each other. We also want to add in discussions where people can discuss and get feedback before they make a purchase, as well as, of course, bringing in a more interactive experience for people to buy and sell, right? So currently, Carousell is mainly photo based, which 8 years ago it was new, but now we do have to add in things like stories, live video selling, and so on into the experience. So yeah, if you go to the next slide, so this is an example of the groups feature that we have. So this is a particular group about terrapin lovers, so people chat about it. So it's beyond just buying and selling, and this can also improve retention and loyalty amongst the users as well. So next slide. So we haven't had live streaming feature yet, so I think that's why we have this session where we're talking to all the great engineers like yourself. So there are lots of exciting pipeline that we have, technical challenges that we're trying to solve for millions of users across smart, convenience, and community to reimagine classifieds. So we hope that later on, Dami and Victor and Jyoti will share more about the exciting opportunities there. So these are a quick kind of summary about Carousell and the things that we're doing. So to summarize, we want to reimagine from 3.0 to 4.0. How can we do that in an AI first world? By bringing together smart, convenience, and community. So yeah, I mean, finally bringing it all together. We're a mission first company. So our mission is to inspire every person in the world to start buying and selling, to make more possible for one another. So I think with that, I will pass on the time to Damiano, which will dive deep into the engineering team in Carousell.
Yep, thanks a lot, Lucas, for your sharing. So I'll share a bit of the boring part first, and then I'll try to share some example a bit later. Next slide first. So I want to describe a bit the way we work. And first, in order to do so, I want also to share how we are organized. So I believe many of you are familiar with this quote, the Conway law. So basically what it says is that what organizations build is actually a reflection of how they are organized. So there are a lot of ways to organize, to structure organizations, for example, I'm going to share a bit about how we are organized now. And the way we are organized now is because we saw that at some point, the way we were collaborating between our product and engineering team was not ideal, or was not sufficient to support the agility and the challenges that we were facing as a company in a rapid growth. So we don't talk now. So the way we are organized now is that basically we grouped a lot of functions under tech. So we talk about tech more in general. We don't talk about only about engineering. What tech means for us, tech is a combination of product, design, engineering, and data. So all these functions and their respective leaders are part of the same team, and they all ultimately report to our CTO. So yeah, next slide. So now I mentioned a bit about tech and how we are organized, but now I want to take a step, let's say, deeper and see how within tech we are organized. So on the left side, you might see some of the area where different teams might be working on. For example, Lucas mentioned about payments, or we might have monetizations more in general. We might have platform or sellers, buyers, and so on. On the right side instead is, let's say, the geographical distribution that we have right now. So we have 3 development center, Singapore, Taiwan, and in India. And let's take me and Victor, for example. We are based in different locations. I'm based in Taiwan, he's based in Singapore. And so the respective teams that we worked on are based in these countries. So the most common questions that I get at this point, or when I'm talking with possible candidates or with people outside of Carousell, is like, how does the tech org structure actually matches the geographical distribution of the dev centers? Yeah, so let's see this in the next slide. So we answered this by actually thinking global first. So basically, first and foremost, every team is working on the same code base. We only have one code base. We only have one app, and we design and build things thinking globally. And everyone working in every team, in every dev center, works on features that will have impact across the entire organization or across all the markets where we are in. There are obvious exceptions. I mean, take things like payments, which requires probably integration with local partners. But in generally, the principle is to go global first. And yeah, sorry, back one slide. So what that means is that another point to that is that our dev centers are organized in a way in which we own domains. So each teams own a specific domain, one or more domains. So that make each team as independent as possible from the other teams. And this, as a result, the result of these two is that gives a chance to every person within any teams in Carousell to have actually a global impact, not only within their daily job, but also within their team. Yeah, so next slide, we're gonna see about the team. Now, if we go like another step deeper and we look at how the teams are structured. So this is, let's say, a generic team. We have people in different roles, in different functions, and not necessarily all teams are structured like this, but there are, let's say, variation of this. So next slide. So what I highlighted here is that each team has a representation of different functions. So we have people from product, people from design, people from engineering, people from data, exactly how our tech team is organized. So then, of course, we try to optimize, let's say, for the team to be as autonomous as possible. But then, how do we ensure that teams can collaborate with each other efficiently? Yeah. So next slide first. This is actually not one solution or only one thing or a silver bullet that actually solves with this. But there are a lot of little things that we do. For example, each function have their own, I don't know, weekly or bi-weekly, let's say, regular sync up or forum where they can actually discuss about what they're working on, things that are coming up, challenges, and so on, and then get feedback, regular feedback, to make sure that we are all aligned. We also share monthly updates to actually, for each domain or area, to inform all the others. I didn't mention engineering here, so I'll talk about engineering in next slide. So in engineering, what happens is that these happen the same, but at platform level. So the meetings are happening actually, I don't know, all the backend engineers, they have their own sync up, all the web engineers, and so on. And these, on one side, let's say, help on the alignment. On the other side, let's say, contribute to a shared sense of platform ownership. We will hear a bit about it from Victor later. But actually, the point is that all engineers are responsible for the entire, let's say, code base, or for the entire app ecosystem. So yeah, I want to share with you, like, when we talk about collaboration, I want to share with you a couple of examples of cross-team collaboration. So yeah, next slide for the first example. Yeah, this is a clip from a video that was going on earlier on, as was made for the launch of Carousell protection. So this woman here is actually mad because someone didn't show up at her meetup, and that problem is solved with Carousell protection. Why I want to share this story? Well, for a few reasons, but of course I'm deeply involved in it because the team that actually launched Carousell protection and all the other payment integration is actually my team here in Taiwan. And why I think this was a good example of collaboration, because so you have to imagine that let's say Carousell historically, or even in those markets where Carousell doesn't have payment integration yet, it's the interaction between the two parties. So it's a classified marketplace, right? So it requires interaction between two parties, a buyer, let's say, and a seller. And this interaction is actually happening with a form of commitment that is called offer. But everything like payment, fulfillment, and so on, or let's say goods exchange, is happening outside of the platform. So what the team did is actually bring in this within the platform, so that Carousell can offer sort of, let's say, warranty, can offer more protection, can support, and so on. But you can imagine that in order to launch a feature like this, this is a feature that impact a lot of user journeys, like from the listing creations to the how the listing is promoted, advertised, how the user sees own listing within their profile. So we need to work with a lot of teams. Of course, we try our best to plan in advance all these dependencies. We try our best to actually avoid any blocking between teams. But what happened is that you probably know better than me if you work in startups, is that things are moving so fast that it's quite difficult to actually prevent any delay from happening. So what happened is that the key things or the winning factor for us to help us launching this successfully was that there were a lot of communication going on at different levels. So iOS engineers were talking with each other, product managers were talking with each other, engineering managers were talking with each other. So therefore, there was a lot of forum for us to actually capture these interdependencies at different levels, rather than, let's say, doing the whole way and just capture all of this right at the start. Yeah, so next slide, I want to share another example. So this slide is taken from actually this is a story that we shared at a previous session of Open Carousell. One of our Android engineer, Jason, was sharing about how he and the team went in reducing the build time. So why I want to mention this second story is because basically this was a problem that was identified and then let's say planned and then eventually solved in one of those forums I described earlier. What happened is that, of course, you know that for client engineer, build time is basically idle time. There's not much things they can do. I don't know. They can start brewing a coffee. They can start checking hacker news or anything. But it's quite annoying to wait for their compiler to actually finish the job. So they felt this as a problem, and as a team, as an Android team, not as a specific team. Okay, as an Android team, they felt this as a problem, and so few of them, they start saying, okay, maybe we should find a way to fix that, and then they start planning about it. They start putting up some strategies, some technical assessment, some POC, and then they start seeing improvement and tracking those improvements up to the level of, let's say, having 60% of improvement. This is not something that you usually put in a product roadmap, or it's not something that you plan in advance specifically, but it's it doesn't mean that this is not equally important, and it was equally important, even or maybe even more important for them. And so it was strategical for them to have a forum to actually be able to talk about it and then to come up with solutions on this. And this is lead to the next and last things that I would like to share about the way we work, which is about empowerment. So I like to talk about it as let's say engineering's excellence, and I wrote there like engineering excellence is everyone's duty, because what I mean by that is that there's no such things as, let's say, a ready-made solution or something that, I don't know, people like me or Victor can come up with planning and decide, okay, this is how we're gonna do and how we're gonna fix things. Yeah, of course there are situations like that, but the most important thing is that everyone in our team, regardless of the role, regardless of the team, regardless of the functions, actually keep having a way and a mindset of thinking, let's say, how can we find better ways to actually solve problems? Could be a user problem, could be a technical problems that eventually impact somehow a user problem. Doesn't matter. And then the rest is that everybody is empowered to actually drive these things. So I have a very nice example I would like to share if we go to the next slide about empowerment. And it's about one of our engineer, Ben, one of our backend engineer. Now the quote is pretty long. I was chatting with him earlier on today when I was asking him about this story. So what was the story about? So the story is about we wanted to look for alternatives to our tracing service. So basically to check the intercalls between microservices, and we are using a tool, and we were looking about what would that be for us to actually have an internal solutions. And so our system team, our infra team came up with some possible ideas, and then they reached out to Ben. Actually, it's interesting why they reached out to Ben, because he has a story. He has a, let's say, a history of being one of the guy that likes to come up with his own solutions to actually solve problems and build things. So that's another story. So they went to him and they said, okay, can we start trying some of these solutions? And then and so he tested out some of these things. He started building a POC. He wrote. He started a technical documentation. He shared it with the other backend engineers, with the infra team, and so on. And then he started to test things out. And I like his quote here because he's mentioning like every chance. So there are a lot of lessons from this story. So one lesson is definitely, let's say, his attitude of driving and making sure that things are happening. Another angle that I would like to take, and I chose that's why I chose this quote for, is because he actually went the extra mile to do things even that were not part of what it was his duty, or would have made his life even easier if we had just systems team to set up the infra, and then because he thought that would be a good chance for him to learning. And the other angle is like, how did he go for this? I mean, wasn't it supposed to work on other things? Wasn't it supposed, his team, let's say, actually to deliver other, let's say, committed features or things? Yeah, definitely it was. But what he did, he actually did an assessment of what would be the impact of these initiatives. He talked with his manager, and it was a clear situations in which this was something worth working on, and so actually he got even extra support, and he was able to drive and work on this. He spent like 20% of his time, and he managed to drive this initiative almost completely now. So yeah, I share these stories. I hope you found it interesting. Yeah, basically, the message I wanted to share is that everyone in Carousell is actually empowered to propose and drive their solutions to actually solve what they think is user problem. So I wanna leave it to Victor. Before leaving it to Victor, just a reminder that you can use the Q&A section in Zoom, and you can just ask questions there. I saw some of the questions that are already coming, so just feel free to ask questions there. So we'll be answering later. Yeah, thanks, and yeah, let's hear from Victor.
Hi, so thanks, Dami. So because of time, I'm just gonna try and go through this as quickly as possible. So I think during our time here at Carousell, we scaled from a couple of engineers all the way to almost 100 today, and I think there's some pretty interesting lessons that we'll like to take this chance to share with all of you. So let's get right into it. So I guess before even talking about how and what the lessons, I think one important thing is why. And one frequent question that we get from people is that you're just a buying and selling platform. So why do you need more than 10 people, right? And I think that's a valid question and always a good starting point before you talk about hiring and why do you want to grow your engineering team size. So next. So if we were to see how we're growing, so this is again a rough estimate. It's not actual statistics data. So this is purely constructed from my memory, which is not very good. But I think largely, so this is the growth of Carousell Tech, which means it includes product engineering and data. So over the years, I think the part that we grew most rapidly was 2016 to 2017 era. And in 2018-19, we tried to keep our numbers as constant as possible before we started hiring a little more in 2020. Yeah, thanks. So today, just as a quick summary across all the entire Carousell company outside of engineering, product and data, we do have quite a number of teammates, a lot of nationalities, and a lot of offices that we've opened up. Thanks. And I think coming back to the question, I think, yes, there are a lot of valid reasons why you want a small tech team. And there's been plenty of research that's not specific to tech, and those research that are specific to tech that talks about why you would want a small tech team size. And I think these are things that we have considered as well, right? Like, I think the more you have, of course, there's a lot of communication overhead, a lot of challenges. But at the same time, we had to ask ourselves, what were some of the things that we wanted to do that we can't do if we only had one team? And some of these reasons are in the next slide. So from a user standpoint, we wanted to, one of the major pain points for our users was around fraud. So we wanted to offer and build a solution that, that does escrow payments, wanted to offer a way to do more secure transactions. So we built Carousell Protection in Singapore and Malaysia. And like what Lucas mentioned earlier, we actually want to help our users reply faster, right? So to do this, we had to build our own AI and machine learning models so that we can give it suggested chat replies, so you don't have to type it out every time. And also, and in Taiwan, we actually do integrate with 7-Eleven, so that's a very a specific and custom integration that we had to do in order to do that. So you can actually pay and ship through 7-Eleven in Taiwan. And all these things sort of adds up on the user side, but also on the engineering side, there were also things that we wanted to do. So for example, the first one, that what Damiano shared from Jason earlier in one of our previous open carousel, we do want to optimize for build times. So in the previous sharing, we actually went from 10+ minutes to less than 4 minutes. So that's like 60% improvement. And these things also do take time for us to optimize. Yeah. And of course, I think shipping things to services into production, I'm sure those of you who have worked on cloud applications before do know that, doing deployments, rollouts, canary rollouts, those do take time to build. But once you do build them and maintain them, they do allow you to ship much faster. So we are also constantly looking at optimizing some of these things. Yeah, and of course, I think from a testing standpoint, right? Like I think we have actually quite a number of sharing done by our test engineers. So building an in-house virtual device lab was also one of the initiatives we had, so that we can figure out like how do we test on more devices than just with our hands. How do we scale this effectively? And last but not least, we also do have some open source projects. It's not as many as bigger organizations, but I think for these projects that we do make open source, we do take pride in making sure that we look at the issues and we continuously build on them. So they are not like just like a code dump or abandoned projects that we don't use. So that's why I think we decided to go to build our team size. Of course, I don't think like we started out saying, okay, we want to get to like a magical 100 figure. I think we just took stock at every point in time, like what are we capable of doing with the people that we have today, and like if we wanted to do some of these things, where else? And so when we did reach 100, after all the massive hiring efforts, and then I would say like things were pretty challenging for a while. Next. So a lot of times you felt like you were just trying to do creative work while things were breaking, and sort of a lot of disasters and incidents happening all over the place. And it should come as no surprise to most of you, right? If you grew a lot rapidly, a lot of things like your processes and a lot of things are challenged and they don't quite work. So it sort of felt like that sort of situation where like you expected like things to be much better, but the reality is that there's just a lot of groundwork that you need to do and lay out in order to achieve them. So some other examples that we had, like initially, of course, we wanted to do more for our users. So overall speed, it felt like, like we wanted to go from 35 kilometers per hour to 200. But unfortunately, reality was that we were going from somewhere in between to an even slower speed. Next. Yeah. So this was what it felt like for us. Next. Yeah, so I'll give some examples of how this sort of things all started to add up to actually make us slower, right, with more people. And of course, I think a lot of times you hear people saying, oh, let's do technical design, let's get them reviewed. And people say, no, we don't have time for that. We need to ship this out now. So same thing, like we got no time to do refactoring, ship it. Or you have a lot of your magical to-do list, or what I call them never do list. So people will say, okay, we'll fix this later, but later is like an unknown time in the future, right? So you feel like you're fixing bugs, but then actually you're adding more bugs to the whole process. So again, same thing, like when you have more teams, more people, you sort of expect, yeah, we're going to keep shipping more things, we're going to keep delighting our users. But reality is again slightly different. So just imagine like if every engineer in every team is making the same sort of localized decision. I have no time to do this. I've got to ship this now. I've got, like I ship this in a week. Yeah, that's all the work I'm going to do for it. Let's just hope it works for the rest of the year. Or even like tech debt, right? Like, oh yeah, we have a fixed 20% time just to do this. They keep popping up. We keep killing them. I feel like we're being massively productive there. And so like this sort of environment where every team sort of make their own localized decisions at a huge scale actually do add up to quite a bit of technical debt that is being incurred by the organization as a whole. And so this was the sort of painful growth process that Carousell went through as well. So I'll just come to very quickly to the three learnings that we had with sort of learned over the years. I think the first one is what Damiano has mentioned earlier. So every engineer is responsible for what like some would call platform work, right? And so like what I said earlier, like if everyone makes very localized decisions just for their teams, you're going to end up in an environment where your tech debt is growing exponentially. So what we do here at Carousell, we've started this culture shift since last year, so that we make every engineer be also responsible for the quality, performance, and the health of their platform. So like you don't push these responsibilities to the future. You make a sort of a technical conscious decision about quality, performance, productivity, and so that like there's no dedicated platform engineers who will just magically solve all your tech debt for you. Like every team and their manager needs to make that decision that's the best for us and for the users as well. So again, like once you have a team that does this, you could quickly see it like you see this sort of culture and mentality start appearing in the rest of the organization. Next. So this is, I think, the ideal state where we want to get to. I think where we are today, there's still quite a fair bit of teams who are still adjusting mindsets, trying to move away from purely speed. But as you can tell from Damiano's stories earlier, I think we've got quite a fair bit of success stories that we want to share, that we have shared, and we do expect to see more of them in the future. Now, on the second learning, I think there is some sort of addiction to speed in the wrong places. So in the next slide, yeah, so this I shared earlier, right? Like there are a lot of parts and pieces where, like all these little things add up to not doing certain things actually add up to a slower like development speed and velocity over time, right? So there is typically an addiction for people to be addicted to speed in the wrong places. And this means that like you skip on the things that are most important, and as a result, your overall sort of development time increases over a longer period of time. And so that this sort of short-term decisions actually does inflict pain to the organization. And so for Carousell's case, we came to this realization, and we've decided that there are some aspects of software development that we simply cannot shortcut, like technical design, code review. These are some of the things that it must be done. So for example, for us right now, taking time out to actually properly write technical documents, getting them reviewed by other engineers are things that are important. But what's important, I think, is that you can actually do this with urgency. So that means you can set up time, discuss with engineers, review the document with urgency. So it doesn't mean that, just because I need to write this, I need to get it reviewed, doesn't mean that it has to be a long process. Again, for smaller features and smaller changes, those can be done pretty quickly. And we are not expecting you to write an IETF level sort of RFC every time. Next. Yeah. And I think the most important learning we had out of this whole process is that software development work is sort of like a pendulum, right? Like some people are very proud that they have a very consistent 20% time. And I think for teams like that, where it works for you and you actually have a very healthy backlog, I actually think that's a great one. But for most teams where they're starting out from, I don't think 20% time is sufficient. So let me sort of illustrate that in the next slide. So I call this like a pendulum of focus. I'm sorry, I don't have a nicer name for it. It's just a sort of concept that I have in mind. So basically what happens is that there is one side of the pendulum when it swings where you actually spend like more than 75% of the team's time working on like things like optimizations, refactoring, bug fixing. And on the other side, you have a team who is able to spend more than 75% of their time on building new features, quickly shipping new experiments, trying to find product fit. And for most teams, actually, where you are in terms of your team's what I call steady state is usually somewhere in between. You might have joined a team where they do have a sizable bit of tech debt. You might also have joined a team where their tech debt is under control. So figuring out where this pendulum is for your team and what you need to do to get it to swing towards the right, where you can spend more time building new features because you have a very healthy and manageable tech debt, is important. So to illustrate this, I will just use this picture from Will Larson's book. He wrote this book, I think, when he was at Stripe. So in this book, he talked about the 4 states of a team. So in these 4 states, there is one state which is called falling behind, and where the team is like spending every breathing moment of their time fixing bugs, solving issues, and when they get to treading water, it means they're much better now, but they're still in a sort of a dangerous state where poor quality and bad work can actually bring them back to a state where they are going to spend a lot of time fixing bugs and handling production incidents again. Repaying debt is the state where they actually acknowledge that and then they're now actively fixing it. And 4 is innovating, right? So this is the part where they feel like finally they are creating a lot of new value for our users. So if you were to overlay the pendulum on top of this, you'll find that how much time you spend on fixing like your tech debt, your bugs and all that should be determined by where the team's state is. So in this case, for example, there has been a team that I started managing earlier this year. I think we pretty much started out in a state where it was sort of like 2 and 3. And after spending quite a sizable bit of time in the initial phases where like we were cleaning out our backlog, we were looking at bugs, and we were actively actually trying to solve some of the long-standing issues. Today, I would say we're somewhere in between 3 and 4. we're definitely able to spend a lot of our time on new things that we want to do, but we still do take quite some bit of time just to handle some of the issues that come up. So hopefully what this diagram gets you is to come out of that sort of the understanding learning that we have, that 20% time is not a magic number. Like some teams swear by it. And I think if you are somewhere in 3 or 4, I think that's great. But otherwise, yeah, please invest the amount of time needed for your team to get to 4. And I think the book by Will Larson does illustrate very well, like how to recognize whether your team is in 1, 2, 3, or 4. Yeah, so just to summarize, I think the 3 learnings that I've gone through as for Carousell's case, I think first one is that we make every engineer responsible for platform work. So there's no magical team you can throw it to. Second, I think there are some areas that you cannot shortcut. And I think defining what these areas are is something that you need to figure out, like what's right for you in your team and organization. And then the last one is to sort of recognize and understand the fact that software development and what you focus on is like a pendulum. You can swing from left and right, and you always want to get to your team to the state where they are innovating more than they are actually spending time like fixing bugs and issues. Okay, yeah, so we still have one last part, which I'll just hand over to Jyoti now to go through some of the roles that we have for hiring. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Victor. Right. So hello, everyone. I'm Jyoti from Talent Acquisition People team. Right. So I am focusing on the hiring and employer branding efforts. So for myself, I was truly inspired by the mission, people, and the problems that we are solving. And I decided to join Carousell 2 months back. Right. So if you are as inspired as me and wondering what other opportunities available, do log on to our career page. Right. We'll be putting on the link in the comment chat box below. Right. To share more insights, we are actually hiring across the engineering domain, right? We are also on the lookout for product managers, product designers, and do have opportunity in the data team as well. Hence, feel free to reach out to myself or anyone, right? And we will love to share with you on the opportunities or for an exploratory chat, right? So the last bit before we move on to the Q&A sessions, right? Feel free to share with us your feedback of this webinar. We would love to hear your thoughts and the feedback as well. Okay, so we can take on the FAQs, but due to the limited time left, we can take on a few questions, and rest assured that we will be reviewing all the questionnaires and replying you via email. Okay. So I will go ahead with the first question first, right? And that's to Victor. How do you build the culture to take initiatives or encourage innovation?
Yes, I think so. That's a great question. Again, I think culture is somewhat determined by how the current working style is in the teams or the organization that you're working in. I have actually taken over some teams where they are actually pretty dependent on their product manager giving permission or rather time for them to work on certain things. In this case, as a sort of the team's leader and manager, the first thing I had to do was to sort of establish a baseline of understanding with the product manager on what are some of the areas I'm concerned about, where I feel like the team is at, and what we can do today or in the coming weeks to resolve that. I think once you bring your team, once you've established that baseline, like start speaking with the engineers and actually instead of telling them what to do, ask them what needs to be done. They will typically have some ideas, and if they don't, you can also share with them like some of the other roadmap items by your systems team, your DevOps team, and sort of get them into thinking like, okay, if I were to do some of these things, what makes the most sense for my team? And I found that throughout that process, people started thinking more and more about what they want to do. And I think it depends on how, okay, for lack of a better word, oppressed they were previously. So it really depends on the team, the existing culture. But I would say like the first step after, like setting up that baseline in terms of time is to actually sort of tell them, hey, what are some of the things we need to do, and get them to tell you. And that is, I would say, would be the most important step in this transformation.
All right, thanks, Victor. Right, so we can take on the second question. Right, so if engineers iOS, Android, backend work across the domains, does it not create issues with prioritization or any other challenges? Probably I can have Dami answer this.
Yeah, sure. Well, of course. I mean, it could be challenging, but So that's for example, one thing that I share in the example before is that we try to review these initiatives all together. What I mean by that is that let's say I'm an Android engineer. I want to improve the build time, and I feel this is particularly painful, right? And it's the important problem for the Android team. Then, of course, what I would do next is to actually share this with, if it's impacting the Android team, I will share this within the team first, and then eventually I will share with my manager or with the platform team lead or with one of the engineering director. Anyway, I will share with some other people about why this problem is important right now. And then collectively we can take a decision together. So it's not full anarchy in which everyone just go out and just do whatever they want. we always need to balance, but at the same time, it's very important. What is often also in the example that Victor shared, what is often forgotten is that when we just look at I don't know, solving or either finding product market fit or solving user problem, what is always forgotten is that if the technical challenges are not taken into account, then they actually build up to a point in which they actually become user problems. So you can see things like reducing the build time as actually improving engineer productivity. So how much can an engineer do with the time saved there? I mean, can even just relax and then be more productive in the rest of the time. So there are a lot of ways in which, or a lot of angles you can look at these initiatives, and therefore then coming up with a prioritization. I hope that answer the question. You can let me know if it doesn't.
Okay, thanks, Dami. I think we have time for just one more question. Right. So what are most of the most challenging customer problems Carousell is trying to solve today? Right. So I can request Victor.
I think this one, let's get Lucas to help answer. Lucas, yeah.
We'll share as well. Yeah. So I think yeah, we're trying to make secondhand the first choice as well. Right? So I think just now we shared that one of the challenges so we look across, right? We did user surveys to look at what are some of the barriers for buyers and sellers to come online, whether you're buyers or sellers. So one of the few kind of barriers would be from a buyer side would be trust, right? They really want to buy on Carousell, but a lot of times they have to spend a lot of time chatting with the sellers to make sure that the item is trusted before they proceed with it, right? So what we want to do is to bridge the gap to solve this trust, to reduce all these problems. So things like how can we add in features like ratings and reviews? How do we allow for payments and shipping with the escrow process so that we hold the money until buyers receive the item before releasing the fund to sellers? And also going forward, how can we add in things like if you're buying electronics, warranty, if you're buying luxury, how do we add in a layer of authentication process as well? So overall, we want to make buying secondhand a seamless experience, like how you buy from e-commerce first-hand experience. So that's one of the key problems that we're solving.
Right. So thanks, Lucas, right? So we are very appreciative of everyone's time, right? Taking the time to actually attend this webinar, right? So we do have a few more questions, right? But rest assured, like what I mentioned, we will take it offline. We'll reply you via mail. And so do keep your feedback coming in. Do scan via this QR. Do share with us your thoughts, your feedback, and then we will review them as well, right? So thank you, everybody. Have a good evening ahead.